This is the Audi S3 that I've been running for the last 5 months, and I like it. It's great, but at £40,000, it's quite a lot of money. However, if you fancy yourself an Audi S3, but you don't have that kind of money lying around, then fear not, because there is a solution. Introducing the Mk1 Audi S3. Now available for less than £5,000, it was first launched in 1999 and was a welcome shot in the arm for the hot hatchback market. Whereas rivals offered under 200 horsepower and front-wheel drive, the S3 came charging in with its 210 horsepower, 1.8-litre turbocharged petrol engine and all-wheel drive, and that meant it was good for 0 to 62 miles an hour in 6.6 seconds and a top speed of 150 miles an hour. Okay, so that doesn't sound particularly quick by modern standards, but around the time that this car was launched, the Honda NSX did 0 to 62 miles an hour in 5.5 seconds. So, by the standards of the day and for a hot hatch, this was rapid. It's also good looking too. The Goodwood green paint job on this particular one really helps, but I love some of the details on it. There's the big chunky 6-spoke alloy wheels that you could get in 17-inch trim or 18 inches. These are the smaller 17-inch versions. There's the silver cover on the mirrors, which you get on modern Audi S and RS models. There's some matte silver detailing on the bumper and the side skirts. The whole car is 12mm lower than the standard A3 and is 28mm wider. I think this really is a handsome and well-proportioned thing. And that continues, I reckon, on the inside. So this particular car has done just over 100,000 miles. So obviously there are some signs of that. There's a bit of wear on these lovely leather Recaro bucket seats. But aside from that, it really does feel rather nice in here. There's a 6-speed manual gearbox, which obviously you can't get on the modern S3. And there's also lots of buttons, which is a big thumbs up from me. Downsides, well, there's no mod cons like sat-nav or Apple CarPlay, and there will be some things that could go wrong. So the hinges on the glove box, they can snap, which is a bit of a pain. And also the digital dashboard display, you can start to see the pixels that will eventually die out, and you can see that a little bit on this car. So you might want to get that looked into if you want to get yourself one of these. But apart from that, the build quality is absolutely superb, as you can see from the novelty cup holder, which still works. Look at that. It's a piece of, well, engineering genius. And I just hope that the car drives as well as that cup holder works. I mentioned earlier that the pre-facelift Mk1 S3, like this one, came with an output of 210 horsepower, while the post-facelift model upped this to 225 horsepower. If you're buying one now though, focusing on condition is more important than getting the most power, so do bear that in mind. Having said that, this particular S3 doesn't make 210 horsepower, it doesn't make 225 horsepower either. It makes 250 horsepower. And that's because it's been looked at by a tuning company called MTM, and they've done an incredible job. What really stands out is the way that when you're driving at motorway speed, so 70 miles an hour, put your foot down in 6th gear, it pulls, I mean, dangerously well. You could start to do some really silly speeds without changing gear, and before you even know it, I mean, honestly, this is quick. This isn't just quick by the year 1999 standards. This is quick by anyone's standards. The actual figures, 250 horsepower, 370 newton meters of torque, and 0 to 62 miles an hour in 6 seconds flat. I mean, the noise isn't exceptional. It kind of just hums and buzzes, but I do like the turbo whistle that you get, especially when you're accelerating in gear. That's really nice. And it's just a really smooth, free revving engine. I honestly think that if we had a rolling drag race between this and the current gen S3, my long-termer,
this wouldn't be that far behind. And the main reason it's going to lose ground is because, well, I've got to change gears myself in this. But saying that, the gearbox is really nice. It feels like a gearbox that's had time to bed in, but it's not loose or sloppy. It's still got a really nice positive change. It's spot on. Handling wise, this is also a treat, and a lot of the reason for that is how small it feels on the road, and also the visibility out of it. I can just swivel my head and see everything. The pillars are nice and thin, there's no big blind spots, and that means that you can just place it on the road exactly where you want it. And also, if you are so inclined, you can turn the ESP off with just one button press. Just one. You don't need to go through some crazy sequence, you don't need to hold it down. It's literally as easy as turning the heated rear screen on. Coming into corners, the initial steering feel and the quickness of the steering, it's not that sharp, but then when it does bite down, when it does grip, it feels really pointy. And actually, it's more agile than I think you'd give it credit for, because there is, like the current S3, there is a bit of body roll, but once it settles into that, it moves exactly where you want it to. You just got to get used to that slight little bit of vagueness at the start of the steering. Once you get past that, it's actually quite crisp on turning. I mean, this car weighs around 1,400 kilograms, and you might think it would be lighter given its age, but the all-wheel drive system and the weight of the all-wheel drive system is apparent, and when you're pulling off, you have got to give it a few revs to get it off the line quickly. And actually, that all-wheel drive system, it was a bit controversial at the time because this is a Haldex system, like the system that's on the current S3, and that means that it's not sending power to all the wheels all the time. It's only sending power to the rear wheels when it really needs it. So that was a little bit controversial because it still wore the Quattro badge, but when you're driving it, do you care? Well, you shouldn't, because it works flawlessly. The grip is phenomenal. The traction is phenomenal. It seems nigh on impossible to get unstuck on a dry road unless you really throw it in. And on a wet road, well, that's when Audi S3s, Audi S4s, they become utterly unstoppable, and that's the feeling that you get from this. And finally, onto a usability point. Early reviews of this car suggested that the ride quality was a little bit firm, a little bit jittery. And that says a lot about the ride qualities back then versus now. There's nothing wrong with this at all. This is on passive suspension. It's on a standard 17-inch alloys. I hear the 18 inches are a bit more uncomfortable, but the ride is great, to be honest with you. By modern standards, this is really very good indeed. It's also pretty refined. The engine revs quite high in 6th gear motorway speeds, but the wind noise isn't over the top, the tyre noise isn't over the top. This is a genuinely usable car. It's even got a really nice Bose stereo, and to my ears at least, it sounds pretty much as good as the standard system on a modern Audi S3. I know I mentioned it before, but the torque on this honestly is outstanding. And yes, it's had a remap, but that's only a few £100 worth. And when you're buying a car this old that's out of warranty, why would you not really? It seems an obvious thing to do. So in conclusion then, this car is a riot. And while it is good fun, I won't pretend that it's as easy to live with as the modern S3. That's where you get the mod cons, you get the Apple CarPlay, you get the dual zone climate control, the parking sensors, the parking camera, all of that. And a lot of people will pay for that level of convenience and that level of technology along with devastating performance. I mean, around a track or around a country road, the new car would be quicker. There's no doubt about that. But when it comes to an experience of driving a hot hatch, this is as good as any. And actually, this is a more involving drive because you do get more communication. It's smaller on the road. You've got your manual gearbox. It's brilliant fun. I just love how the power's delivered, how it makes you wait for the boost. I could drive this all day, honestly. I absolutely love it. And when you factor in that you can get one of these for around £4,000–5,000 versus how much you pay for a modern S3, then, well, it depends what you're looking for. But honestly, if you want the S3 experience, even now in 2023, when this is a 22-year-old car, can't recommend it enough. This is properly brilliant.